Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Awakener podcast, the best podcast in the history of the world, a high IQ podcast. Why is this a high IQ podcast? Well, there's a lot of dummies out there, both left and right. And I really think that we're kind of different here on this podcast. Number one, I don't have a million followers, mainly because I'm not a genius and I don't speak about a relationship between Israel and the United States. And oh my goodness, there's financing going on between parties and they're financing individuals and they share weapons and technology. Well, duh, that should be obvious. What are you missing in this equation, ladies and gentlemen? You're missing the opposite side of the coin. When you understand the full scope of it, you actually understand that that agenda is at war with an opposite agenda, which is called an imperialistic communist agenda, which is seeking to actually destroy Israel, destroy the Western world, raise global totalitarianism, and not really create this idea that nation states will come together with global governments, that will all have our kind of input on the way the world is run. No, you will listen to what we say and do. And our establishing government and the establishing government that works in the United States of America actually works for our enemies in that agenda. Um, the reason why I guess I don't have a million followers is because I kind of tell you about both sides. I'm kind of trying to be blatantly honest about both sides to come to a conclusion about what actually is happening. And both sides are not interested in telling you the truth. Why is that? Because they both have something in this. Well, number one, I'm not going to sit here and have a million followers and tell you that Kim is a mole because it's just not going to happen. The Western world is not going to let you know that Kim is a mole. Much like Russia and China are not going to tell you how they think they control Kim and his regime. And this is really kind of interesting stuff that is happening that the general public kind of can't know. And this is specifically what we talk about on this podcast. So go to theawakener.ca. That's one word, theawakener.ca, and you can see everything that I've laid out to what is happening over the past 8 years. We are at war, ladies and gentlemen. So let's dive in and let's talk about the latest. Now, everyone is talking about Nicolas Maduro and how he is going to obviously be tried in New York City. And little do you know, if you look on Rumble and you look on YouTube and you go back in time, I talked about how it was highly suspicious that Maduro would go down without a fight. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it happened. And I don't believe kind of anything that the general public really understands at face value about this raid. Sure, it was a real raid. I'm not stupid. I'm not naive. I'm not going to talk to you about a bunch of stuff and make up a bunch of nonsense. The raid was 100% real. It was a great job by the U.S. military. I just think that Maduro knew his time was up, and he obviously was communicating to the U.S. military, and I believe that his associates were as well. And yeah, sure, there was a firefight, but he was letting them know where he was, and this is why it happened so easily. Now, what is the future for Venezuela, and why did this all happen? Well, those who are simple-minded are going to tell you that the U.S. went to this all because of oil. Well, obviously, there's a relationship with Israel. Didn't you know that Israel finances the USA and Israel wants this oil and the US wants this? And it's not that simple. Like, use your brain. Okay, so it's great that we have all this oil and it's great that we're cutting off the supply for Iran, Russia, and China. That's wonderful. It's great that we're going to have extra oil maybe in a war, but this is really about the Panama Canal. And this is really about securing our hemisphere before a war breaks out. That war is going to break out, I think, when people know the truth about blackmail. People are going to know that our leaders are being blackmailed and extorted by foreign powers. People are going to understand that it's actually not Israel and Mossad that is blackmailing our leaders, but the opposite conspiracy, aka Jeffrey Epstein. There is more information to prove or go into detail about that Jeffrey Epstein was possibly a Russian asset rather than Mossad. So for every kind of article that you think that you can find about, oh, you saw somebody in an Israeli hat or a Mossad jacket, there is 10 times the information that Robert Maxwell um, worked for the Russians, that Jeffrey Epstein knew him before suspiciously, and and people continue to ignore it. And that really is the kind of um, that's kind of like the details that I've been telling you about these podcasts for quite some time. The the similar the similar thing about all these podcasts out there is that none of them are really talking about this communist conspiracy. None of them are talking about Russia and its involvement. None of them are talking about communism, and none of them are talking about Jeffrey Epstein was possibly a Russian asset. So people are talking only about that one simple side of the coin because they're simple-minded people. So let's get back to it again. One more time in Venezuela. I believe Venezuela happened because the US is going to basically indict a specific group of individuals in the United States. These individuals are high level globalist people George Soros, for example. There is possibly a hidden RICO case against him for working with the Soviet Union. Yes, the Iron Curtain collapse that he said he did was fake. Second of all, he's going to get in trouble for obviously financing all and money laundering all our money and financing all these groups here that are teaching us communism, have been teaching us communism for the past 30 years. And Obama's in trouble because he's going to be proven as the Soviet plant. Um, Installed obviously at the hour of empire collapse. And he was distributing US uranium to obviously through Canada to the European Union and on to Iran and North Korea. They were preparing for this war to have EMP weapons into space. And Zelensky was supposed to bring us along for World War, and it never happened. So instead, we're taking out Venezuela. Instead, we're having a giant proxy war where we're funding Zelensky in his fight against Russia, and instead we're working on all these little things before a war happens. Okay, so like I told you from the beginning, this is not about oil. Oil is just the simple answer. There's much more to this. Think about it this way. You can't have a world war with China without having the ability to mass produce ships, to mass produce military equipment, and then you have to ship it through the Panama Canal. If you're on the eastern seaboard, how are you possibly going to do this without having the Panama Canal? Why on earth would you have a world war and not take care of every single nation around you in that region that is communist that would turn on you and kind of choke off this Panama Canal, making it extremely difficult for you to get ships and materials over to that region? This is why, thank goodness, these people are not running this military operation. For those of you who think nothing is happening, oh yeah, nothing is happening. Okay, you can't just indict people. You can't just tell people the truth back in 2017 because nobody would have understood it. Everybody has to be engineered to understand the truth of what is happening. Our leaders are blackmailed. Our leaders are compromised. They're working for, obviously, our enemies. And George Soros and crew are a bunch of traitors. And this really boils down to, ladies and gentlemen, a hidden Soviet agenda. The left is going to have a very, very hard time when they defend Venezuela or this dictator, Nicolas Maduro, and they say, well, he should be back in power. Well, do you not know that he was working for Russia? Do you not know he was working for China? He was working for Iran. And this is really the beauty of what is coming in the future. The left is going to be forced to admit that its agenda is not socialism, it's communism. And it's going to be forced to admit and see that their agenda brings with it a hidden Soviet military agenda, which is you are the opposite of we. We are looking to bring good and prosperity to this world and to help the individual and help individual nations. You are looking to bring totalitarianism and dictatorship to this world. And the reason why we have fences, ladies and gentlemen, you don't take down a fence unless you know what it restrains. And a lot of these idiots out there who have these podcasts, they don't know what the US industrial complex restrains and why it exists. You cannot just ask the yin to disarm itself without identifying the yang and doing the same thing for the yang as well. It's not that simple. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, you need to go to theawakener.ca. It's very complicated, I know. And if this is your first show, you probably, you know what, you're probably lost. But it's okay. Go to this website, listen to my old shows. The reason why I don't do a million different shows all the time is because you can still listen to my old information. And if you listen to a podcast from 1 year ago, it's still relevant today. You can learn about what's in Iran and the Fordo's nuclear site that's buried. You can learn how that relates to obviously investigations that are happening right now in this war. You can learn how it relates to obviously different governments around the world, like Canada and the European Union. It all makes sense to you. So listen away. Thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. That's all for now.